Welcome to the Sportlight podcast for parents, coaches, and athletes. The Sportlight refers to the time in an athlete's life when they have increased ability to affect the culture around them and the increased opportunity to learn life's lessons through sports. This podcast aims to help parents and coaches capitalize on their athletes' precious time in the Sportlight. The Sportlight podcast is brought to you by Especially for Athletes program.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sportlight podcast. Today's podcast is unique and personal to us, but its lessons are applicable to everyone who hears it. This podcast is airing on the day that a wonderful young man, Bryson Mcquivey, would have graduated from high school. Bryson was one of the QBs on his high school football team, and shortly after his junior season of football, he was diagnosed with a very serious form of cancer. For years, we have been teaching about the power that athletes and sports have to lift those who are down. But the example set by Bryson and his friends is one of the greatest examples of that concept that we have ever witnessed. The way his friends, teammates, and community rallied behind him was incredible. The shaving of heads, the painting of the 15-yard line, Bryson's number 15, in maroon and gold each game, his teammates taking turns wearing his number in games and having his name called instead of theirs when they made a play, the bake sales, the community support. I could go on, but it was incredible. It is literally impossible to list all of the things that his team and classmates did for him. It was so impressive. The only thing that was more impressive was to watch Bryson serve others. One of the most touching scenes I have ever witnessed was when his friend and fellow QB tore his ACL in a playoff game. Bryson, fitted with crutches, hobbled over to his friend on the training table, put his arm around him, and comforted him. Here was this young man who had just learned that his cancer was terminal, comforting his teammate who had just learned that his knee was injured and would be done for the season. It was an incredible example and just one of the thousands of Bryson serving those around him, even in this difficult state. Just a week before Bryson found out that his cancer was terminal, we did an interview with him. After we found out that devastating news, we did not feel comfortable releasing it. Bryson passed away on November 24th, 2020. At his funeral, on the screens was a beautiful picture of him that almost looked angelic, with the words, "Thank you for loving me. Please go share that love with others." He was so committed to serving those around him that he even did it in death. We invite you now to listen to the words of that interview and this incredible young man, to his mother, to his friends, and to his coach, as they teach us through their example the power of the Sportlight to lift and help those around them. We dedicate this podcast to Bryson, to his family, to his friends with heavy hearts who are graduating without him today. We are grateful for all of your example on how powerful the Sportlight could be to help those around us. Here's that interview. Well, so let me start by asking you this, Bryson. Take us back to the day that you found out that you had cancer and how serious it was. What were some of the first things that went through your mind?
Well, the day that I got diagnosed, it was just me, my dad, my mom, and my stepdad in the room. And the first thing that I thought and the first fear that I had was not being able to be a normal high school kid, or not being able to do a lot of things that I could normally do, such as playing football and having energy to hang out every night with friends. And because I knew I was going to get weak, and I was scared that I didn't know what chemo felt like, and I didn't know what radiation was going to do. And so it was kind of fear of the unknown. and fear of not being able to do what I could normally do. I'd say that was probably my biggest fear.
Yeah, man. That would be difficult. So now that you've been through it, what's the most difficult part of going through this?
Well, my dad, at first, my dad said that this is going to be more mental than physical, and I didn't believe him at first. I was thinking in my head, chemo and radiation and my tiredness, it's all physical. And I said, everything's going to be physical, and I can get over this physical stuff because I can be strong and just get through it. But I've realized that it's more of a mental thing than anything. Yeah, you do have chemo that makes you sick, and you do have radiation that affects your body and makes you tired, and you do have the tiredness of just kind of feeling sluggish, but it's all a mental thing. And that's really what I've learned, is trying to be mentally tough. And I've looked back on things like football that has helped me be mentally tough and kind of prepared me.
I'm sure you've had coaches and stuff like that have pushed you, and when you realize sports a lot of times is more mental than physical. The one who decides they're going to work longer, push their body harder, is the one who ends up being victorious. And tell us, you mentioned it already right now, but when you think of how sports prepared you to go through this grueling experience of battling cancer, in what ways has it helped you get ready for this?
Well, lots of sports can prepare you for a lot of different things. I feel like for my situation, being quarterback and playing in that position, you get hit a lot and you have to get up no matter what. So preparing me for this, getting hit with cancer and getting hit with bad news, or getting hit with chemo and not being able to do certain things because you feel sick and tired, but you have that mentality that football gave you of, yeah, you got knocked down, but you have to get back up. And that quarterback mentality and that football mentality kicks in of, just you get hit by a big linebacker or lineman or something, and nobody cares, or you kind of have to deal with it. And you just have to get up and keep going, no matter how hard you got hit and no matter how much it hurts. You just have to keep going no matter what.
That's awesome. By the way, just from watching you, you're doing great at that, man.
Thank you.
You are doing amazing. It's we'll go places and I see you there and I just think that kid's a fighter. Like, he knows how to get up, and it's just been inspiring, for those of us who are watching you go through this and who care deeply about how it turns out. It's inspiring to watch you sit there on a sideline and do what you can for your team.
Thank you.
You're awesome, and you're doing a great job. Whatever prepared you to be as awesome as you're being through this battle. It's great. So
I appreciate it.
I think back, I'll tell you a time when I broke down and started crying, Bryson. We had made a post just asking people to pray for you and send any positive vibes, whatever they believe in, your way, and especially for athletes, on our website. And I started to see all these kids from all these different schools from around the state of Utah and Idaho and down into Nevada. And, I remember one day I was just reading through all the posts, and I was just reading post after post, like, Bryson, you got this, man. We're praying for you. We're thinking about you. What was it like to feel the support of so many people, even people who didn't know you, as you were coming to grips with the battle that was ahead of you?
I think it's incredible. I never expected it to be this big, and I never expected to have people in Nevada and in Salt Lake and every place to know my story. But it helps you a lot, especially trying to get up in the mornings when you don't want to, knowing that people from Nevada and Salt Lake are praying for you and fighting with you It's really humbling, and it's really helped me at times of my lowest when I kind of just want to give up and I'm just kind of sluggish. I remember those kids that have commented and reached out and prayed for me, and it helps me keep going. So it helps a ton.
What have you learned about helping people from being the one that's being helped?
Well, I've seen the things that people have done to help me and how much it impacts me and how much it really makes my day of when people just do even the small things. So I've learned that doing the small things, even me just doing the small things to other people and knowing how that's going to impact them, that's just what I taught, or that's what I've learned. Just the little things can make anyone's day. And maybe they didn't think that it impacted me or I really thought about it, but it really does help.
So I know your friends, you have like the greatest group of friends that have rallied around you. And I know a few of those, especially the boys, the
poor boys.
Yeah. And it was, boy, man, I can't tell you how many times you've made us cry over the last little bit, but not always just sadness, sometimes just being completely touched. We were at the assembly when your buddies and your dad and some others went up on stage and had their head shaved in front of everybody and to raise some money. And, they did the bake sale and donated some things. Like when you know that a whole group of people care so much and that they're rallying around you to try to help you, like what effect did those things have on your battle and you being able to get back up and keep going?
Well, like I said, it's a huge mental game more than physical. And so those things like shaving your head and knowing that your friends shaved their head for you and the school chanted Bryson Strong and people spent thousands of dollars on cakes. It really helps you get up in the mornings, and it helps you in the lowest times of just your eagerness and you're just at your lowest point, but knowing that people have done that for you. And it just really helps you on those days where you're feeling low.
Awesome. So, I mean, you're battling cancer. There are kids at the high school, as you know, that are battling things such as loneliness or depression. Some kids are fighting battles that are just as real, but maybe not as visible as cancer might be. And, not often is there, when someone's going through that, do you have a whole auditorium chanting their name, with Strong after it. But when you think of those things that kids are going through that are really, really hard, a very real battle like cancer, but just not as visible, like I said, what advice would you give to athletes that want to help, but maybe sometimes they think, oh man, I just feel kind of stupid, or, just what have you learned through this process that could help our athletes have the courage to reach out to someone?
First thing that popped in my head was nothing will hurt. So people that are going through depression and anxiety or self-confidence issues or things like that aren't as visible as cancer, reaching out doesn't hurt anybody and won't do anything but good. And never be afraid to reach out to people like that, because you have no idea the impact that it will make on their lives. Like maybe they were having huge depression that day, but complimenting them on their hair or their outfit or anything may have just helped them get through that day. And it never hurts to compliment somebody, and it can only do good. So, and people that are my advice to people that are struggling with those types of things is mainly you're never alone. You may feel alone at times when you're in your room or you're feeling depressed or super anxious. Just know that you're never alone, and know that people are there for you, and never give up. No matter what, never give up, because there will be days of happiness and there will be days where you can get over that depression. And those days that you feel bad, it's worth getting through so you can have those days of happiness and joy. And sometimes we have to get knocked down to get back up. So I would just tell them to never give up, no matter what happens.
Awesome. Man, you're an awesome young man. You know that?
Thank you so much.
You know, I bet there's been some people, Bryson, like going with what you just said, which I think is so powerful. You're never going to hurt anyone by trying to be nice to them. I bet there's some people, for example, that think, oh man, I wish I could reach out to Bryson Mcquivey, but I don't know if I'm close enough of a friend to him to like, I'm not like one of his like really close friends. So it probably wouldn't make a difference to reach out to him and say, hey, I'm thinking of you or whatever. If someone had that hesitation, like I want to help so-and-so, I want to do this, but I just feel a little hesitant because I don't know if I'm a good enough friend. What would you say to that situation?
Once again, I mean, you can go back to that phrase of nothing will hurt, reaching out, and maybe reaching out to that person will create a new friendship, maybe even like a best friendship that you never would have had. And even if it's just saying something nice to someone every day.
I love this theme that's coming out in our interview of you're not going to hurt someone by trying to be nice to them.
Yeah.
That's a powerful thing that if we could get in the heart of someone, our other athletes, that you're not going to hurt them. Just reach out to them. Like who's ever hurt anyone by being super nice to someone, letting them know you're thinking of them. So.
And especially with this Sportlight, we've been taught by E08 that people that play athletics and sports have a Sportlight on them. And so I would say, especially to kids that play sports and are good at them and people know them and they're well known, even from you guys, I really wouldn't be hesitant to reach out to anybody at your school. And yeah, it never hurts to be nice to somebody. Nothing's bad is going to come from complimenting somebody. So especially with that Sportlight, you can do a lot with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. We often teach in our presentations and stuff that the Sportlight, it kind of makes the bad you do more powerful, more hurtful, but it makes the good you do more powerful. You've had, I know, some people reach out to you and, some athletes, even at the college professional level, things like that, and wish you well. And that Sportlight, sometimes, does it make a difference? Does it make it even a little bit more powerful when someone like that with the Sportlight on them reaches out to you?
It definitely does. And even still at the high school level, even when maybe like quarterbacks or star soccer players or star basketball players from other high schools reach out, it really makes a huge impact. Yeah.
Well, Bryson, I can't thank you enough, not only for taking this time, but for your example. We say eyes up, do the work, right? That's a big part of E4A. And, you've said a lot of things today that will help us to do that better. You just got to get up. You got to get your eyes up. You got to get up. I love what your dad taught you, that it's a mental battle, and you got to get up. You got to do the work and keep going. And man, you're a great example of that in so many areas of your life. And we just want you to know we're going to continue to pray with you and fight with you, send every good vibe we can your way as you continue this battle. And just thank you so much for your example and what you do. Keep it up.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the support. I really appreciate it. So
you're welcome. We love you.
I love you too.
Can I ask your mom a few questions, Bryson?
Yeah, Mom.
Can I just ask you a few questions from a mom's perspective?
Sure.
What has it meant to you to watch his friends and even strangers and, kids reach out to him to show him some support during this time?
Yeah. There's times where he has just felt like he's so alone, and he's mentioned, he's like, Mom, there's nobody that knows how I'm feeling. There's just nobody that knows. And I'm able to tell him, that may be true, Bryson. Nobody has cancer. Nobody's experiencing, the treatments and the loneliness and the depression that, it's causing. But everybody is fighting for you, and everybody wants to be a support to you, and they want to help you, and they want to be a part of your story and a part of your fight. And so many people would give him their strength if they could. They would take some of the hurt from him. They would take some of the struggle from him. And so when he gets to that point where he is just feeling so alone and like it's tough, and he does. I mean, you see him at football games, you see him around town, and he looks like he's doing great, right? And he really is doing great. But there's times where he really struggles emotionally and really struggles physically. And so, we're able to, there's people from the Institute that have written him letters and cards that he reads every night. They, gave him a year's worth of cards, and he reads those, and it lifts him, and then he's able to read posts on social media about, Bryson, we're rooting for you, or, how sorry they are that he has to go through this. And it really makes him feel so much less alone. And he feels just, I don't know, it's just a strength that comes from his friends and from the community. That's just amazing. I think he's been shocked at the kind of strength that it gives him to be able to read just encouraging notes from people that wish they could do more and that wish they could help him fight through this.
What's it like? One of the things Maple Mountain's doing for him is,
oh my gosh,
wearing his number. And so this last game, he was catching a lot of passes and throwing a lot of touchdowns.
His stats are awesome so far this year. They really are. You know what? It's so humbling and so amazing that they would even have the thought to do something like that. That the players would be willing to give up their names, being spoken over the loudspeaker for a game so that Bryson can still be a part of, football this year. That's so generous on their part and generous on the coach's part to think of that and to let that happen. It's just really humbling. And we're really grateful that, I don't know, it's really just kind of lit him up this year, because he was so devastated at not being able to, dress up and get out there. And he had to mourn and he had to grieve that. And so this has just kind of lit him up for the year and just brightened his outlook a little bit, I guess, for the football year. It's really cool.
Well, and I can tell you, every time I hear Bryson Mcquivey over the loudspeaker, that gets the loudest cheer.
I know. And it's just great. And, it's every game, it's a different position. And yeah, like we said, his stats are great this year. So far.
This next portion of the podcast is an interview with Bryson's three best friends, Jordan Parks, Bryson Bliss, and Quincy Rogers, who, along with Bryson, were affectionately known as the Boys. Also, Brad Burtonshaw, Bryson's head football coach. I'm wondering what you learned having a friend go through that, having a friend going through a real difficult time. What did you learn about helping people who are going through a difficult time as you went through that with Bryson?
So one thing that first thing that popped into my head is at least with me, when it came to like Bryson, like I felt like the more that I was trying to help and the more that I helped, like it helped me feel better about things. Like obviously, like I know I didn't cure his cancer, anything like that, or make those bad days any like. I mean, I hope I made him a little better, but like he still had bad days. But I feel like the more I tried to help and be there for him, it was better for me.
It was hard to watch, but it was never hard to be there for him. Like
Exactly.
Marcy, his mom would always tell us about how, because she would hear all these other stories of other children who have gotten cancer and how terrible it was because a lot of their friends would leave because they'd get overwhelmed and they didn't know how to help. And it was just hard on them. So they would just leave, but we never
even crossed our minds, I feel like.
Not even once. Like Bryson was that friend that, and like, I don't really like texting people, but I checked in with him like all the time because I have withdrawals. Like he's that guy you want to be around. Yeah. So it was never hard to be there for him because like, that's where you felt like you needed to be.
I felt like the number one thing for me was like just helping him out. Like how he helped him out was like just make sure he had a smile on his face every day.
What have you learned about helping people in general?
It's like pretty easy to be there for someone, like if you really care. And like being there for Bryson just felt like supernatural. It didn't feel like a burden or a hassle or anything. And honestly, I'm really glad that like we were as close as we were to him and that we were there for him all the time, because now that he's gone, like that's obviously opened up a hard time for the three of us. But I never knew what it felt like because I was there for him like a lot, but I never really knew what it felt like to have someone there for me a lot until this happened. And then these guys are here for me a lot. There's countless friends at school that are here for me a lot. So I'll never really hesitate to try and be there for someone again, because I know how it feels to have someone be there for you, and it means everything.
And it was awesome to watch Bryson be there. Like he was there for people. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like almost
just as much as us. I feel like it's like, come on, dude. It's like we're trying to be there for you, but you're being there for us.
His mom telling me the story of what they gave him, the really bad news, and he's like apologizing to the doctor, like, "I'm so sorry, you have to give me that news. Here's this kid." It's like he was pretty amazing at that.
He really was. He was like the best therapist that you could have, because he just gave you a sense of, because I know he had come to terms with it and he had like made his peace, but he also had a way of like
twisting it onto
like giving it to you too.
Yeah. If you took football out of that whole experience, take the team out, take the colored 15-yard line out, take the people wearing his jersey out, sports are powerful. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
There was something special going on there. And from your perspective as a coach, just not that you learned it through this experience, but what did you learn about the power of sports?
Well, first, I think, the reason why I coach, I love football, but I love players more. I love being around guys like this. And I think that the power that sports have is where I've drawn a lot of my life lessons and things that I love, and what football has given back to me with all the years that I've put in. That's why I keep doing it, because I keep getting so much from it. Bryson's experience and having the honor to watch these three play and be around and be examples, and was a very humbling experience. And I think friendship, when it involves a sport, when you become a teammate, it's different. It's all the friendship parts are still there, but there's an extra level or an extra amount of camaraderie, of love, of friendship that goes along with that. Because these guys are willing to to block somebody so that their buddy doesn't get tackled, or anyway, just they make a lot of sacrifices, and it's a game, but the sacrifices are real. I mean, they really lay it on the line for other guys. And when Bryson's going through this, it doesn't stop. You know, it doesn't stop on the football field. They do it again. They visit, they talk to, they fundraise, they support family. Like I've had conversations with his mom about what you three have done for their family, and how these three brought light into their home when it was such a hard time. And I don't know if you'll ever know what you've done for everybody else. Like, I know you've done a ton for Bryson, and that was an honor to watch. But you did a lot for a lot of people. And I think sports just kind of wraps that all up. So
the night we found out about his diagnosis, it was my birthday. We were up at Topgolf, and Bryson couldn't come because he had a doctor's appointment because he had this pain in his back, and we didn't know what it was, but it came to light that it was tumors, right? He couldn't be there, but then we find out at Topgolf that it's the cancer. And so then we race home, we meet with him, and like when he was like broken down and telling us like the news, the literal first thing he mentioned was how like he was afraid and how he was hurt that he was not going to be able to play football and play sports. And so like the football team, you know, still letting him hold his jersey and, you know, like become, I don't know, like still be a part of it. I mean, football carried him a long way. And shortly after the season was over, like that's when he said goodbye. And I mean, I don't know what like better piece of evidence you need for the power of sports, because that really was like that saved him multiple days. It saved him because it was such a good thing for him to look forward to. Yeah. Like he could not be down in the dumps at the football field. He couldn't be down in the dumps when the student section was wearing his shirts, and on senior night when he got standing ovations. I mean, all the support in the football team, it carried him for real. Yes, like the community, and we did a lot for Bryson, but Bryson did like a crazy more amount for the community and the football team. It was something different about this season. Like, it's not a coincidence that this season was like a really good one for Maple Mountain. And I feel like it was a good amount was because of Bryson and his example and the drive that he put in everyone else, because in a situation like this, you're playing for something like much more than just the W. Like, you're playing for him, and there wasn't a game without like a number 15 on like a couple players like arms, and like everyone dedicated their games to Bryson, and it was because of what Bryson did for them. Like, he lit a fire in everyone that.
I mean, I think we could probably all sit here for hours and talk about memories, and right, like, you did this or did that, and we know how far-reaching his influence was. But that senior night game, and I don't know how much you guys knew about this. You might know because your dad was in on it with the coaches and stuff. But we wanted to do something to surprise him, to, you know, bring a smile to him. And so we had these T-shirts made up that all said Bryson Strong with 15 on the back and Mcquivey, and we hit him. And I called Coach Chambers over at Provo, who was coming to play us that week, and said, hey, if I buy some shirts that say Bryson Strong and I put a Provo logo and do it in green and white, will you guys wear them for the game? And he said something that's always stuck with me. He said, this is way bigger than football. And so he's like, we're in 100%. So I said, my goal is that every coach, trainer, manager, like staff member on the sidelines has this Bryson Strong shirt on for our senior night. And nobody's going to reveal it until the senior night's all over, and about the time they announce, they always announce like the head coach and who receives the kick. Like, when Mr. Smith does that announcement, we're going to shed the shirts, and I'll have these shirts on. And that kind of, like, I don't know what it was like as a player, but you know, we went through the whole senior night. I asked him, hey, do you want to ride the golf cart? Do you want to piggyback ride? Crutch out? Like, what do you? He's like, I think I'll just crutch out. And I said, all right. And I said, you can take as long as you want. Like, we don't care. The referees don't care. The other team doesn't care. Like, you can take 10 minutes if it takes you 10 minutes to get across the field. And so he's like, all right, so that's what I want to do. So we did all that. And then when we shed the shirts, I don't know if there was a dry eye on our sideline as far as coaches go. Like, I remember seeing your dad, just like, and then to look over there and watch all the Provo coaches have their Bryson Strong shirt on for the whole night, and the managers and the trainers and everybody. That's a memory that I feel like we wanted to show how much love we had for him, but also just we're honored to be his friend. We're honored to be his coach, to play against his team, to be around him. You know, the influence, like you guys said, that he put out to everybody else, which was way bigger than anything we could have done, went beyond sport. I mean, sport brought us together, but it was even bigger and more powerful. I think everybody needs to belong to something. Whether it's the chess club or the orchestra or drama, or, you know, we love sports and to compete and play games with our friends, and that's where we get it. But I think, you know, as we try to continue to reach out, help people in our school, our communities, you know, everybody needs to belong to something. Even if it's just a friend group, or a team, or a club, or a neighborhood, or whatever it is. But people are powerful, and it's nice because sports are kind of the vehicle to bring people together. So,
you know, no, I think one of the greatest miracles of Bryson and that experience is it showed the power of sport, not just staying on the field. But there were kids, I think, that felt like they belonged because they were part of supporting Bryson in the stands.
100%.
And something that athletes can do that you all did this year that I think could be done every year is they can belong, you know, if athletes will appreciate those who take a Friday night to come out and support them.
Oh, yeah.
And that is something that's important to the athletes, and they love those who come out to the game, you know, those kids that are struggling with things that are a little bit more silent than cancer. They're struggling with anxiety and depression and loneliness, and they don't go bald because of those things, you know. But those kids can be included by athletes who want to be inclusive. And I think part of the magic that you felt at every game this year is everyone was part of it. And Bryson was a big part of bringing everyone there to be in this unified position. I think that can happen more in sports if we just tried to make it happen. And I think that's one of the greatest lessons that Bryson's legacy leaves us with is sports are powerful. They can have effects on people. They could bring people together. They can strengthen others. And also, you know, I love what he said. It never hurts anyone to be kind to. But thank you for your example, Coach, for the team's example, for you guys, for being there like you are true friends. And you learned a great deal from Bryson. Bryson felt a great deal from you, but all of us who had the honor of watching it, it was an honor. And what you did was special. And we hope it could be an example. If everyone could just come and say, who are our Brysons and how can we help them through their struggles? This world would be a better place. If every athlete decided to do that, what you all did, this world would be a better place. Don't you agree?
For sure. Yeah.
100%.
I like that.
Bryson, we miss you. We love you. And we thank you for your example, and we thank your friends and family for their example. If you would be interested in donating to the Bryson Strong Foundation, you can visit brysonstrong.org. Eyes up, do the work.
This has been the Sportlight podcast from Especially for Athletes, sponsored by Coca-Cola. You can learn more about Especially for Athletes by visiting the website at especiallyforathletes.org. You can also learn more about the book, The Sportlight, by Shad Martin and Dustin Smith at especiallyforathletes.org/book.